Hello everyone and welcome to today's edition of Talking Reds. My name is Mo Stewart, alongside me is John Gibbons. We are sitting here excited about more football because the Euros are starting in 7 days' time. I don't know how you guys are feeling about more football. I know that some of you may be a little bit trepidatious, or is that the word? I'm not sure if that's the word. May have some trepidation, I think you'd find it's called. But the fact is that we're here to tell you that it's fine to be a little bit that way, but once the game starts, there will be more excitement. Trust me. John, how are you in the too much football, can't wait for this tournament scale?
I'm really looking forward to it. I think, I understand that people got a bit of football fatigue because there was so much on, but part of the problem with the Premier League was how it finished. It was only really top four that was exciting at the end. So by the end, there was just a lot of sort of nothing football games, really. And whereas the Euros, there'll be something to play for pretty much from the off. I mean, they've obviously made some changes to the tournament, which means it's easier to get through and things like that. So there'll be a lot of calculating what results mean early on. But generally speaking, there'll be a lot of games that matter, and then the next thing we know, we'll be in the knockouts, and obviously they very much do. So I'm looking forward to watching some good football. I'm looking forward to watching football without, necessarily it being life and death like it's been at times for Liverpool. And then also, as I say, lots of games with things riding on it, with, a lot of, because the Premier League just sort of, as I say, the top four thing was exciting, I suppose. But apart from that, we knew City had won the league back in February. Realistically, we knew who was down from April, and it was all just sort of done. Whereas this, it'll just be like watching the playoffs. So the playoffs was great.
Yeah, well, this is what I was going to come into. It feels like a free hit for us. Really,
yeah.
Because like you say, the Premier League and all of its own pressures and all of its own stuff, baggage, for example, we can go on and dump that aside. This is our summer holiday.
Yeah.
And just think about when you were a kid, you spent all year at school playing football, and then you went on summer holiday. The first thing you wanted to do was try and find somebody who could play football. That's just how it was. And that's how it is with this here. Now, obviously, Liverpool do have some representatives in this tournament, and we should probably speak about those first. Unfortunately, that number went from 8 to 7 between the announcing of the teams and the start of the friendlies. So as you all know by now, Trent is not going to be there. We do have 4 home nations representatives though. We've still got Jordan Henderson, hopefully. We've got the captain of Scotland, obviously Andy Robertson, and we've got 2 Welsh fellas in Nico Williams. And technically we still have Harry Wilson. And then outside of that, there's the trio of Diogo Jota, Thiago Alcantara, and Xherdan Shaqiri. Now, I'll give you that list of Liverpool players. Some of them aren't going to be as involved as the others. Which of them are you most looking forward to seeing in action?
Yeah, it's a good question, mate. I think, Jota has been flying for club and country. He scores some big goals for Portugal. They've got a tough old group, haven't they? Portugal, it is that group of death, isn't it? It's so tough. And you probably make them marginally third favourites to sort of in that. And so it's going to be really, really difficult for them. But you'll be playing in meaningful games and against good opposition. So I'm looking to see how Jota does, up against those good defences. And Shaqiri, I love watching him for Switzerland because he's the talisman, isn't he? He's the main fella. Everything goes through him, and he loves it as well, doesn't he? I mean, he loves playing for the Reds as well, but he's got that extra spring in his step when he's playing, for Switzerland. I think he likes the pressure on himself, really, and so I think when Shaqiri's on the telly, my eyes will be appealed towards him as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think as well, he's probably aware of where he sits in the Liverpool stature, so there's going to be an element of maybe even showing these people what I'm really made of, for those who feel he hasn't played enough, or maybe showing prospective teams what he can do. So from a Liverpool perspective, it's going to be suiting us there. I like the fact that his first game is against Wales, so we will get to see a bit of that Harry, Nico versus Shaq battle. Especially, I don't know if you guys are paying attention to Wales' recent friendly against France. Nico got a ridiculous red card that was so harsh. Even the French players tried to stop the referee giving them a red card. But he was playing in central midfield, in a midfield 3 for Wales against France, and they're riches in midfield, which tells me that that's going to be his planned position, either left midfield or in central midfield. And I'm kind of excited by that idea, John. I mean, it gives us a chance to see him in a new light, really.
I love the idea. We've spent 3 years talking about moving Trent into midfield, and now suddenly Nico's in there. Do you know what I mean? It was that way around all along. So Trent, you're staying right back, and Nico is the new box-to-box midfielder at Liverpool. Turn right back, who knew? But yeah, looking forward to it, and good on him. You know, he's had a tough season in many ways, hasn't he? But probably played more games than he expected to. So there's ups and downs, you know, from his season really, and there's positives to take, which is, I'm sure he'll be happy looking at it, and he'll be looking forward to having, you know, hopefully a really good Euros, as you say, alongside Harry Wilson, who was doing a bit of false nine in the week. So one to keep an eye on there too. Might be the new Firmino.
Well, this is it. I mean, the people are going to be absolutely looking for every single transfer hint that is possibly out there. So I don't know, maybe we need to look at the players in this squad in this tournament and see how they match up. But I want to kind of take a little bit of step back. You may be able to see here, I've got my cheat sheet with me. But again, it's a summer tournament. You need some kind of reference point. You do. I don't know if you still do wall charts, but trust me, if you've got something you can refer back to at all times, it's really, really important. But I want to talk a little bit about the nature of the groups and the qualification, John, because for those of you who don't know, there's 24 teams in the Euros, split into 6 groups. And then from the group stage, they go into a last 16, which tells you that they go from 24 to 16. So there's only 8 teams who get knocked out in the group stage. So it makes it harder to get knocked out. So most of the teams, all of us are disappointed out there, will at least have a good chance. Like you said earlier, John, I think part of the reason is that they want to make the later games in the groups as important. There's always something on every game. I mean, they just want more games, let's face it. That's also a part of it. But what we do end up with, for example, if you're England, you're in a situation where winning the group and facing the second team from the group of death, which is Group F, which contains the last 3 tournament winners, which is Germany, Portugal and France. So the second team from that, if you come first, whereas if you come second, it will be the second team from Group E, which is Spain, Sweden, Poland and Slovakia. So you can win the group and you'll be playing France or Portugal, or you can come second and you'll be playing Sweden or Poland. And England's first game is against Croatia. So you can see a world where England win that first game, feel really pleased with themselves, and then we think, hang on a minute, we need to try and find a way to lose one of these other games. But I mean, obviously England aren't going to go out to lose, but what I mean is that it's not as straightforward as it normally is in a tournament. You do want to win every game and progress, and you will be benefit from it. Sometimes we might see some strange tactics towards the end of the group stage.
Yeah, those last games, you know, you'll have to keep your eye on for them, and for everyone sort of, you know, jockeying a little bit and having a little look around. I mean, that England-Croatia game is probably the best 2 sides in the group, you would have thought. And England don't have a great record against Croatia. I think it is fair to say. There was that great away win that one time, wasn't it? I think Theo Walcott ripped it up. But generally speaking, England have found Croatia a little bit tricky. So I think they'd prefer if that one was last and maybe both teams are already through and they could then just go, oh yeah, I didn't want to win it anyway. But it's up first for England, and that's what they'll have to do. Will. But I didn't realise that until you mentioned that upstairs, and it is a strange thing, isn't it? Because as you say, normally, you know, you win your group and that's what you're trying to do. And look, you might get unlucky, but in this case, it seems right from the off, you sort of know that second place is better, which is unusual to say the least.
I mean, obviously with draws, you can always say, well, the time that they were drawn and then the time that the tournament's played, particularly in this one where there's such a big gap between them, you can say what looked like more evenly matched groups then have now changed. But I think everyone always looks at that Group F and was like, that's a tough one. I really want to avoid everyone who played in that. So taking into account only 2 of those, well, they could all go through to the knockouts, but essentially their path to the final is a lot harder than everyone else's. Is there any team you're looking out of for maybe a sneaky bet for the final at least, if not necessarily winning the trophy?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because England are favourites and you say, oh, how can that be? But then you look at the squad and you look at the other squads and no one's squad's perfect. And that's what I like about international football, to be honest with you. You know, some squads are really strong but are maybe lacking a goal scorer. You think, oh, you know, they could do with someone, you know, England have got that, to be fair. They've got Harry Kane, who always performs well in tournaments, always just performs well. They've got really good attacking talent, but then question marks, I would say elsewhere. A couple of people on form and look a bit light in midfield. And every squad you go through, there's sort of question marks and things. And that's one of the nice things about international football, is that a manager can't go out to spend £100 million on a Turkish lad. You're in the situation you're in. And so it makes it more interesting. So it makes it harder to sort of predict, really. So I'm just really looking forward to it. I think part of the reason England are favourites as well is because that group of death is so strong, and I think if a team emerges well out of that, I think they would quickly become favourites. So I still think France just sort of seem to have the bit of extra quality to me, but I think it is open and I'm really looking forward to it.
France are probably who should be the true favourites. I mean, England being favourites smacks a little bit of like, please bet on this for us. Because, that's coming to it as well, particularly when we're talking about in England. But France have got the squad. France have got the belief from having done the World Cup Euro Championship double 20 years ago. The guy who's now the manager as captain, so he's kind of still at the helm anyway. So there'll be a lot of them in France who believe that this is their time, they can go out and do it. But like you say, it's going to be tough. There are some other teams who I quite like the look of, and I think that if they get it right, they may well go far. A lot of people are looking at Belgium. Personally, I think that their team is on the way down as opposed to on the way up. I think you've got to look at Holland as a team who've not only got a decent group. If you look at their group, it's Ukraine, Austria and North Macedonia. So you'd say that at least two teams there that they should be expecting to beat.
No Virgil though.
No Virgil though, but they've got Gini. I mean, this is the weird thing, is there's almost as many ex-Liverpool players in the tournament as forward, because Kabak's in there as well.
We're still cheering for Gini. I'm sure we are.
I mean, I am very much still cheering for Gini.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah, so I think that if you're someone who wants to look smug towards the end of the tournament, I would say keep the Netherlands in your conversations early on. I'm really intrigued by Italy as well. They're a team that have traditionally, for the last 4 or 5 years, have kind of not been in the business end for tournaments. But again, they look like they've rallied behind Mancini. They look like they have an idea of what they want to do. And they're kind of going under the radar. I expect them to top their group with Switzerland, Wales and Turkey. And then once you get into the knockouts, I think in terms of dangerous, when we think about knockout football, we think about the fact that the groups in the early times are always the exciting games, always the high scoring games. Yeah. Then it gets to the tight part. And then you see a lot of after extra time and penalties. I think that's where Italy are going to come into it this time. Yeah,
they're a tournament team, aren't they? That's how they always feel, and you won't want to sort of necessarily come up against them, especially, as you say, if they can use that group to get a bit of form or use that group to sort of quickly gel and things like that and get some results on the table. I think that's a good shout. But you mentioned there the Turkey in Italy's group, and I'm intrigued to watch Turkey because I think Turkey are one of those teams who maybe you don't sort of see too much of the players, but the two lads who were at Lille have obviously had an amazing season, haven't they? So they're coming into it absolutely flying, feeling like giant killers already. Do you know what I mean? And so they'll have no fear at all. And yeah, I think, as you say, quite a nice group. You'd expect Italy to go through on there, but I think Turkey can go through as well, and then wait and see. So I'm looking forward. I'm not saying I'm tipping them, but I'm looking forward to watching Turkey in this, and I think they could go well.
I think the other thing we have to kind of factor in that we haven't mentioned so far is the fact that the Euros aren't happening all in one country. Something else you're probably aware of by now. But the nature of the COVID world, I mean, it's one of those things. On the idea of it being a total across Europe tournament, I went from thinking, well, that's a dumb idea, to thinking, well, actually, that might work. And then COVID happened, and I was like, well, yeah, it's a nice idea, but it feels like this is the wrong time to be doing it. I'm still kind of in that camp, but it is going to have an effect because you are going to get a lot of the group leaders who are going to be playing at home, particularly early on. But then when you get into the knockout side of the tournament, the semis and the final will be at Wembley. Yeah. And this, again, is something that England haven't had for a while. But do you think we're going to get into a situation, obviously there's going to be a smattering of fans as well. Do you think we're going to get into a situation where the home advantage that we've lost over COVID is going to start coming back?
I think so, yeah, because you know, as you say, it's not been there for so long that I think it will make a big impact for those who have got it. I mean, let's see. I mean, it depends what your support is like. If England fans are booing as soon as they bloody walk out there, then you know, making shows of themselves, then you know the players on the pitch might be thinking, well, I don't necessarily want this kind of support. But you know, if it's backing them properly, and this is for any country really, that that you'd hope that it would sort of make an impact, because as football fans, you want to see supporters make a difference, don't you? So I'm hoping it does. But as you say, Mo, there if England can get to the semi-finals, and I've just convinced myself to go out to the semi-finals, so it's almost a mid point, because you've talked me into them topping that group and then get beat by Germany on pens. But I think if they can get through, then that's a gift, isn't it? Having the semi-final at Wembley.
I think so, and I mean, we're not gonna go too heavy on England in the show, because I think most people out there have got their own England position and have probably stated it one way or another by now. But you all know me, I'm a student of the game in general, so I'm always going to be interested in this kind of stuff. So I like them. I'm like you. I think that if they can get that far, then they've got a really good chance. But we here at the Anfield Wrap have got our own version of this. So again, I mentioned before about sounding smug. You can go a little bit further than sounding smug. You can actually fill out a predictor for the tournament. It's kind of like the brackets you'll have in any kind of the US sports or anything like that, but you just predict the result of every game, and then from there it takes you to the natural conclusion for the next round, and the next round, and the next round. And well, John, you can tell us a little bit about it. We brought a partnership in for this.
Yeah, it's we're doing it with a company called Scurito, which I've just realised I've never said out loud. So hopefully I pronounced it right. But Scurito, it's big fancy football, big across Europe. But yeah, over here in the UK now, and they're doing this really good predictor for the Euros, and it's really easy to use. You just need to get your predictions in before the first game of the tournament. You've got to do all the ones for the group stages in one hit, and then after that you can obviously wait and see. But if you do all the group stages in one hit, there's a few bonus ones as well, just for a bit of fun, top scorer and things like that. But we've got our own league on there. There will be a link underneath in the bio to click through to go into our league. We're putting a prize up. Robbie Fowler was in last week, so we got him to sign a shirt. So it's a signed 96-97 Robbie Fowler shirt that you've just seen upstairs, Mo. It's very pretty. I'll bring it on for one of the shows next week. So we'll keep reminding you. But as you say, you've got to get in before that first game to be part of the prize. But it'd be really good fun anyway, and it was great. Scratching your head, Slovakia's form and stuff like that. So you can take it very seriously, like a few of us did upstairs, or you can just put numbers next to teams and we'll see who does best.
Well, I mean, after my experience in the FPL and hosting that show, and it actually doing me some serious damage to my team, I feel like the idea of being able to have a free hit with this one, no responsibilities, no expectations, is really looking forward to it. But you mentioned kind of digging deep into the Slovakian squad and stuff like that. There is another thing that happens when people are watching the Euros. There's lots of players who are putting themselves in the shop window. We mentioned Shaqiri on the way out, but there's going to be some on the way in as well. There's going to be a few breakout stars of this tournament who Liverpool potentially the rumour mill in particular, will start putting names against. Do you have anyone you're thinking of at the moment, or are you just excited to see where this new talent will come from?
Yeah, look, it'll emerge, won't it? I mentioned there's a couple of lads, the Turkish boys at Lille who I'm looking forward to seeing, they're being linked away. There's a couple of old-timers as well who might be up for sort of showing a bit. Griezmann, if he plays, I'm really intrigued to see, because it's not worked out for him, and so you'd think he would be available, and so he's probably looking at these Euros and thinking he's still quite a young guy. I've just called him an old stager there. He's 28. I think he's 30. He's 30, Griezmann. But he's probably thinking about a move and probably looking at this. And the other one is Depay as well, who's got a brilliant international record. Has been linked with Liverpool for feels like forever, and maybe he'll be looking at this and saying, come and get me. I'm ready to hit the big time.
Well, this is it. I mean, the fact remains is that Genie's going to be there to either telling him that he's better than Aguero and that he can get in his team, or he's going to be like, you know what, Aguero's pretty good, mate. We can tell you how great Liverpool is. So either way, we're hoping that Asian Genie can do some magic for us there. But you're right. I think it's one of those situations where it's natural to get excited because you don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
There are a few people who have been kind of touted. Donyell Malan, who's another Dutch player, is Dutch striker, plays for PSV at the moment. He's someone who I'm certainly going to be keeping my eye on. I really like Dejan Kulusevski, playing for Sweden, who was really good for Parma and then for Juventus over the last couple of seasons. Not necessarily sure we're going for him, but he's worth a watch anyway. And then, of course, there's Florian Neuhaus, who, I mean, may or may not be going to Bayern. If you ask him, he'd tell you something a little bit more coy than what the reports say. So he's another one who's worth keeping an eye on. But I think to round this show off, John, we have to do the thing that everyone does when they're doing a prediction show. Is tell me who you think is going to win this trophy. Sorry.
I'm going to say France. I'm going to say they look to have the strongest one for me. But listen, I would love it. I'm going to be rooting for Scotland though because yes sir, I can boogie, Mo, as you know, and I'm going to be rooting for Andy Robertson's boys. But I think France more likely wins.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, if I could choose any team to win, then it's definitely Scotland. like not even a half a measure for anyone else. It's definitely Scotland. Not only because of Andy Robertson, but because it would be so funny. Think about how funny that would be if Scotland were actually able to win the Euros. Oh, I'd love that. I mean, they won't. They won't. If you're asking me for a team to win it, unfortunately, my predictable answer is going to be Germany, but I do think that Italy and or Holland will make the final or semis alongside them. So those are the three teams I'll be looking at. I would love a new winner. The Euros often throw up a bit of a surprise, though. We've seen in the past, look at Greece. Yeah. Even when Portugal won it in 2016, no one was really talking about them before the tournament. So this is the thing. It's fun football. It's risk-free to a certain extent football. It's hopefully going to be exciting football. And if you are taking some stick about what more football already, really, just tell them to watch this show. We'll get you all in the mood. Trust me. John, thank you very much for joining me. We'll all see you here next week for the first game.